want to talk a little bit about the beating of the heart. And an activity that you would do in lab that obviously you can't do is doing an EKG probe. Now this is not like the EKG probe you would get at the hospital. It is much less technical. It requires 3 leads, and I'm going to show you how to put those on before I get into the program. I know you're thinking now, oh, I really wish that I had gotten to lab so that I could do this. But as you can see, I have, whoops, I'm walking the wrong direction here, and now I'm going fuzzy, but I have leads on, whoops, you can't see that either. Holy mackerel. All right, I've got a lead on my wrist, one at each of my elbows, and I'm going to put these little electrodes on them. So this one actually goes on this side, and that one came off my wrist, and then this one is going to go up here in my elbow, at my elbow. And then we're going to go into a different program. So let me get rid of me here for a second now that you know how I'm set up. And this is a program that we have that will measure the electrical impulse that's going through you. Okay, so I'm going to start it here, and it'll take a minute to kind of do what I want it to do, and I'll probably have to stand up. But I'm going to hit record. And when I hit record, you'll start to see what you normally would kind of see for a heartbeat. All right, looks a little funky. We'll try to make it look a little bit better. But that is my heartbeat. So I'm going to stop that now. We're going to find a good part of it, and we'll look at what's actually happening. So let me get myself undone here. All right, so as I look at this, remember that your heart has an electrical beat. And the part that controls the beat of your heart is called the SA node, and that's in the right atrium. That's in the wall in the right atrium. And when the SA node sends a signal, the atria, both atria at the same time, both atriums, the atria at the same time will contract. When they contract, they're sending blood down into both ventricles. So that movement of that electrical impulse around the atria that's going to make them contract is actually going to hit the ventricle as well. It's going to actually hit something called the AV node. And the AV node is going to branch that, that electrical impulse around the ventricles by way of something called the Purkinje fibers. And those are little electrical fibers that are within the heart. And so different parts of the heart are going to contract at different times. The atria are going to contract and push blood into the ventricle, then the ventricle is going to contract to push blood into the pulmonary trunk or into the aorta. And we can look at that electrical impulse that's going around the heart by doing an EKG. So I'm looking at this here, and there's a couple things I want to do. I'm going to get rid of my data points. I'm also going to separate this. It's a little easier to see. Okay, and I actually want to look at this part because this looks a little better. So I'm going to move it down a little bit, and I'm going to separate it, and I think I'm even going to move it down a bit again. But now I'm starting to see these little blips. So I'm going to smooth it out just a little bit as well. So hopefully I can see these blips a little better. So this is called, and let me see if I can, I don't think I have anything to label with. Let me try a text box and see if that will do it. So, whoop, I obviously didn't do that right. All right, so instead what we're going to do is I'll show you these different spots. So let's start out with the beginning of this beat. This right here is called the P wave. Okay, so this is the P wave. That's a little wave that tells it that the atria are about to contract. So that's the electrical message that's going out from the SA node around the atria, and that's going to tell the atria to contract. So that's called the P wave. And then this is Q at the bottom of this big peak, R at the top of the peak, S at the other side on the bottom. And that is what's going to say that the ventricles are about to contract. So there is my P, Q, R, S, and my last wave is going to be my T wave. And my T wave is this one right here. And my T wave is telling me that my ventricles are contracting. So what I would look for, and I am no expert, but what I would look for is that these are regularly spaced, and that would indicate a regular heartbeat. Also, if you did this with like a 12-lead EKG, which is something they would do in a doctor's office or in the hospital, they would get much better readings. This is kind of junky, but it does give you an idea. So you're labeling the P wave here as this point, this first point, Q, R, S, and T.